And I want us to focus on a different story. Part of the reason that the president has been in Mombasa, he was meeting with the regional security bosses, and there is now a plan to have what they are calling a master population database that will have information about the DNA of all Kenyans. We have different qualities or characteristics of you as a person, including the ear geometry, details about your palm, your thumbprints, just to ensure that we're able to manage security. And this is coming just a week after the terror attack at the Riverside, 14 Riverside Drive. So a very ambitious program here to have all this information about each and every Kenyan. Is it a possibility?
By the way, Sam, I think it's actually long due. You know, we are living in an age, and this one we have to agree, we are living in a digital revolution age. We are still carrying ID cards that are not digitized in any way, shape or form. Yes, we have a registry somewhere, but you know, once you produce it, it does not take you anywhere, you know, from the person. There is no even way to compare and contrast the document that you have, whether it's genuine or not. What I find, you know, a project like this of the IPRS, which actually needs to be hastened, is because of the threats that we are going to encounter in the 21st century. It was, I think, Kenya, we were very lag behind even in our driver's insurance. We were still carrying that booklet, which looked like, you know, so archaic. All right. So what am I trying to say? I'm telling you that the world is moving to a more digitized and a more closed unit, you know, whether be it the digital passport, be it the ID that we are talking about. What I find so great and basic about this technology is this, that it tells the government, or it tells the people who need to know, on a need-to-know basis, who the person or the true character or the true identity of a person is. That is very critical in our world today. And I hope this is something we had taken cue a long time ago. We would have been very far. We have foreigners in our country. We don't have an idea who these people are. Even again on ourselves, you know, it is something that actually has, you know, has been left behind in matters development and in matter digital inclusion. So this is a way to go. And Sam, I mean, to answer your question, this is very possible.
It is possible, but when you look at the systems that we've had in this country, like for instance today, you have an ID card. For you to register to be a voter, you have to be processed by IEBC differently. You need a KRA pin, it has to be a different database. You need a driving license, it has to be a totally different process. So how do we integrate all these processes so that we do not keep creating new systems without focusing on the efficiency of the ones that exist?
Yeah, I think that is what the NIMS intends to do, the National Integrated Information Management System. And we just before we closed Parliament, we passed a law bringing into being the NIMS. So I think what the NIMS is trying to do is to eliminate this issue of you have an ID, okay? You are a Kenyan with an ID, but when you want to get a passport, you are told to bring your birth certificate, you know, or some baptism, I don't know what it is, you know, and so you go and bring your mothers and your fathers and everybody, and you say under which circumstances, whether they passed on, you know. So I think this is what NIMS wants to deal with, so that NIMS will be a system in every ministry, in every area. It's only the levels of access that become different. The, you know, register of persons, and it is going to register every Kenyan, which means even when you're not 18, you will be in the NIMS. So that when you turn 18, you don't need to take any other document. You just go to your center and get your ID card. And that will deal with this issue. But what you're saying that is right is, it had better function. You know, it had better work, because we might put in a lot of resources, a lot of money, and then we end up with, again, a white elephant. Maybe it's not working here, the system is not working there. So the challenge to the ministries involved is it had better work. And then I think there is a concern over privacy of information of individuals, and every Kenyan has a right to privacy. So I think, of course, you're not private to government. Government now knows everything. They even check your house. You know, they see you in every place. But it is the responsibility of the government to keep this information private, so that you don't have people obtaining your information fraudulently, you know, and encroaching into your privacy. So I think that is a responsibility for government to ensure that this information is kept, you know, safe, so that your privacy is not violated.
Mheshimiwa from Lurambi, we live in a country, in 2009, if you remember, when we were having the national census, there was quite some contestation in as far as, because some people were feeling like, because of the 2007-2008 post-election violence, they didn't want to declare their details about their ethnicity. So there was that feeling exposed. Now, this system will expose even more beyond that. It will expose where you live, the GPS location of your residence. It will expose details about even your facial features. What do we do to ensure that Kenyans buy into this idea instead of just doing it because government has said?
Sam, my first question is, when I had this thing yesterday, my first question that came to my mind is, do we have the resources to do it? Do we have the ability to do it? Even the most advanced countries, like the United States of America, in Europe, Australia, naming them, have they been able to do all this? Because where we come from, like, I represent a constituency. I know how my people live. I know the different age groups. I know the age of my mother. I know how old my father is. We have all those people there. Are we able to mob all these people and bring them into these centers and register them? What a fiasco we are staring at. Because I was there, and I've been there during the, when these Standard 8 pupils, candidates, those joining Form 1 and those joining Standard 1, looking for the issuance of birth certificates. It was chaotic. If they cannot manage, if they just can't manage a few young people to acquire birth certificates, what about trying to register an entire country? To me, again, my question is, even myself, I have to wake up in the morning, go to look for ways and have, you know, look for what I need for the day. Think about Huduma Center and the fiasco that is there, just looking for something, even if you are looking for a certificate of good conduct. How long you have to wait, supposing everybody has to show up in those places. So to me, it can be an exercise in futility. We've seen white elephant projects.
Right.
In many instances when the government, of course the government meant well, the policy means good, but are we prepared? Are the officers in those ministries prepared to handle this thing? And will they whip the Kenyans? Will the Kenyans really be interested? Because we have people out there who have resigned because of the troubles we have, the poverty, the hardships that some of the Kenyans live in. If I talk to my mother, say, Mama, I need you to go do this, she'll say, at my age, I'm waiting for God to take me to heaven. Why will you trouble me there? I have arthritis in my legs. Am I able to withstand the long queues and lines? So to me, I'm very skeptical.
Well, very quickly, I think skepticism, you know, notwithstanding, I think when you talk about very advanced democracies, for instance, the United States, the one thing that comes out when a person in the US is born is something called the Social Security number. And this is a number that you hold with you until you die. All right? And this establishes the person you are. All right? And it is one of the numbers, if you hear people who've migrated to the US, they will tell you that is a very elusive number to get, you know, when you're not born there. Yes, people who migrated there and, you know, eventually ended up getting it, because you can almost not transact or get a document, even work, without having that number. And this is what we are trying to establish. When you look at the digital passport, we never thought we would go that avenue. But the world has actually shifted. Security has become paramount, that we are forced to go in that direction. So when Mheshimiwa is talking about NIMS and such technologies, this is not a preserve of Kenya, whether we want it or not. This is where the 21st century is headed. For crying out loud, you go, you know, to a government office where you need to get an ID, and you're asked to bring a plethora of documents, some which you've never seen. When somebody asks you to go and bring your mother's birth certificate, that's something you've never seen. Why should you be, you know? So these are areas or avenues where people are trying to run away from. I believe, Sam,
right.
I honestly believe that if we are going to encompass such technologies as the NIMS and what has actually been, been passed forth, if we have the budget, if we have the commitment to do it, I think this is a direction. This is a way in the right direction, and we should not actually, dilly-dally.
Yeah, but I just wanted to add something
right.
that maybe Bishop maybe didn't notice, but in last year, there was recruitment of young people in every sub-location almost by the chiefs and so on, to be trained in this digital technology, so that it is something, this biometric kit, it will be like voter registration. Right. It will move to every home. It will move even, 10 homes at a time,
right.
So it will go to the very lowest level in terms of, and those people are already recruited. I'm sure the training is going on, but we all must urge the government to make sure it succeeds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The challenge in this country, Weshimua and Gabriel, you will see that it's not that we are short of technologies today, especially to do with security. Once upon a time in this city of Nairobi, there were security cameras that were, surveillance cameras that were installed. And after that, there has been several crimes that have been committed in this city. Some of them have not been resolved. Case of George Mushai, the former vice chairperson of Kotu. We also have an avenue where what do you call them? Telecoms, telecommunication firms have access to all the data that we have.
Right.
Yet all this information does not stop attacks from happening. How do you ensure that this NIMS, which is partly to ensure that we are more secure, how do we make sure that yes, we invest resources in such kind of databases, but they work for us to stop attacks like what happened at River?
Sam, can I tell you something? I do not think we'll ever come to a time or ever get to a position where we will say we are now totally immune from the tribulation that comes with terrorism. No country in the world can actually say they are immune from terrorism. What we must do is to keep ahead of technology, and that's how you fight terrorism. You be 2 steps ahead, or 3 or 5, better than what they are. Because, the only thing, like I told you last time, the only thing that terrorists need to do is to succeed once, and they create havoc. So as much as we have these technologies, the cameras and what have you, I mean, we know there are areas where they've been used to assist, and they've actually been able to assist. Yes, there are also other areas where they've been counted upon and they never sufficed to actually help or aid in capturing the culprits. But are we going to say now, since it failed on that particular arena, we are not going to continue investing in it? I think that will actually be beating ourselves silly. What we need to do is to ensure, like Mheshimiwa Gladys is saying, what we need to do is to ensure that it works. We need to hold the people in those offices accountable to a degree that you brought us into this technology, we supported it, we want to see it working, and it should. If it has worked in other democracies, like in the UK and the US, these things do work. Cameras do work.
Yes,
city cameras do work. So we need to ask, these people are the same people who've installed these cameras probably in China and where have you. They've worked there. Why are they not working? Is it deliberate? And from there, we'll start getting solutions. But one thing we cannot do, Sam, is to say that, this technology, we invested in it, it has not worked on this particular on this particular issue.
Yeah, but the Safaricom ones, the ones that were supposed to be installed, the CCTVs that were supposed to be installed on all our streets here, those ones we need a report on what happened to them. We truly need to know. Because when you are inside the attack venue, you could see how the CCTVs showed us everybody who was there, how they were moving, including the way the suicide bomber did. What if all the cameras around the city were working? Would have seen how they moved, which routes they followed, how they got there, where they stopped. But we need a report. I think the Committee of Parliament on ICT needs to really invite Safaricom and other stakeholders to tell us where are these cameras and how are they working? Because, as you say correctly, people have been murdered mysteriously. George Mushai was my colleague in Parliament last year. He was murdered right in front of GPU. Nobody can show what happened to him. People like Jacob Juma, they were murdered, in cold blood. Nobody can show us what happened. So some of these unresolved issues, we must ask, what happened to those cameras? That one we need to know surely what happened to those cameras that were supposed to be installed. Kenyans need the answer to that question.
Before you say what you want to say, Kineniwa Embu says that if Britain finds the system controversial, why would we try to imagine that we can get over this and be perfect? We have no resources to perfect this system. We're just creating a corruption point for some leaders. Someone else, well, it's the same person. Another person is saying that, let me read this. Names is welcome, but we hope some Kenyans will not reject it, terming it satanic, just as one parent declared names as such. Public participation is key.
we were giving mosquito nets. We had a program where we were giving mosquito nets a few years ago in my area. And the couples completely refused to sleep in the mosquito net because, according to them, it will make them infertile and they won't have babies. So instead, we found the mosquito nets outside. They had been turned into chicken houses. So to me, I'm thinking that, this is a good thing. I am not against it, but I'm just skeptical because looking at the past, the way things have been done, and also how money has found ways and been misappropriated. If this thing can really take off, and again, don't expect, just like if Mheshimiwa Gladys, the idea is taking it to the people's door, then that works better. But whipping all these people to Huduma Center, it is chaotic. There's no way.
Right, and as we wind up, I just want to highlight something that came up. NEMIS, the National Education Management Information System. We saw yesterday the Principal Secretary saying that 300,000 students have not been registered into the NEMIS system, and now they will not receive a cash. 36 billion shillings has been released. What do you make of this?
No, I think because we are using NEMIS for the first time, the PS and the Ministry of Education, they should look for a way of ensuring the 300,000 are captured so that they receive the funding. And then as time goes by, because technology won't be, the uptake is not 100%.
True.
Even transition, we were saying 100%, we've seen it's 80 or 81%. So I think the 300,000 must be dealt with. And you see what NIMS is going to deal with is like NEMIS. Now you won't need a NEMIS like this, where people are registering now. You'll know this kid from the time the kid is born, that they're in class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When they reach class 8 and they do their KCPE, you will just get them from the NIMS into the NEMIS, and deal with the education issues in that way. So I think on this education one, I think it will be punitive not to give those schools, because I thought even there were schools that didn't even log into the NEMIS. There are schools that did not even log in, and it's just that technology uptake is slow. We first of all didn't even have people going onto WhatsApp or whatever, but now everybody almost is going there. So they must give time to some of the schools that are lagging behind.
Is it a challenge of head teachers and school managers not being able to interact with technology, or is it just defiance?
No. You see, from the stories we've been able to get and hear, you've had people who've used that as a conduit of wastage of public resources. It was very hard to actually find or understand how the computation was going to be passed. Now, bringing in putting in the system NEMIS, and I know most head teachers and the principals were actually told about the very same thing and probably trained at it as well. What we need to get is this: the ministry, so to speak, throughout time, when NEMIS was brought in, they've actually been communicating with them, telling them this is the way to go. Funds are not going to be released. The competition is not going to be released through any other system but NEMIS for accountability purposes, all right? Which is key. Because like I'm telling you, a lot of funding, if you hear what the PS was saying, is that a lot of funding was actually getting wasted. So it is not a hard thing, all right, to actually go onto that system if you see it and understand it. It's actually a very easy thing to register students in there. What we should be asking is, why are they not doing it?
The problem we are having in this country and I'm not just being negative. I don't want to look like I'm just negative, but the problem we have in this country is good ideas come, and they're very good, and even what is happening in our schools is very good, but just the preparedness is what is the missing link. The missing link is the preparation. Are we prepared? Do we have the human resources? And sometimes we bring an idea and we want it done now. And then we come with time frames, we come with deadlines, and not everybody can meet the deadline. And so that is one of the problems we've had with this thing in NEMIs and schools and all that. But to me, I am in agreement. But my problem is the preparedness, sufficient human resource to do it, and then the timelines whereby you find we are in a mad rush, like it's an emergency, and if it's not, just the way they did, they were just saying, you know, when Form 1s were getting into class, and they were saying, by Friday, that is the last day. Come on. Is that a reality?
But we are a very procrastinating nation. Mweshimua is here will tell you. We are told to register to vote, and we wait the last day. So we are a procrastinating nation, and that's what we need to run away from. What must come out very clear is that on the 500 schools that PS was talking about, they are not going to lose the funding, but they'll have to wait until they register through NEMIS, and their funding will come, because the funding is distributed. The capitation is distributed through the NEMIS. And you cannot have one where you're distributing funds through NEMIS and the other one you're going through the old system. It won't work.